Elen Sila Lumen Omentielvo. It is no secret that Tolkien's Catholic faith heavily influenced him in his writings, and so today I will discuss various ways that influence can be seen when reading the Legendarium. I'm going to be breaking these down into different categories, those being events and themes. Before I dive into events though, it is important to remember how Tolkien wrote Middle-earth. The stories of The Lord of the Rings, The Hobbit, and The Silmarillion were written to be fictionalized myths of our own planet Earth. Think of it this way. Sauron is defeated at the end of the Third Age, and roughly 10,000 years later, World War II comes to an end. It's meant to be the same world. Middle-earth is Earth in the very distant past. Now this is important because of Tolkien's Christian faith. That is his worldview. He views morality and science and history all through the Christian lens, specifically the Catholic denomination. So let's jump right into the first category now, that being events. The very first thing that has to be talked about is the creation of Arda. Now the creation of Arda is different from the creation account in Genesis. However, there are still some clear parallels. The first being that there is only one God. Most ancient religions and creation stories involve multiple divine beings working in concert to create the world. And while the Valar would go on to shape the world and are vital in the music of the Ainur, they are not divine beings. They were created by Eru Ilúvatar, who dwells in the timeless halls beyond the void. In a similar way, God created the angels, and the seemingly greatest of the angels was Lucifer, who turned against God and tries to destroy everything God makes. Melkor is similar. He wanted to have the flame imperishable and create on his own, and when he realized he couldn't, for that power resided in Ilúvatar, he sowed discord into the music of the Ainur. And to further the similarity, Satan was the serpent that deceived Adam and Eve into eating of the fruit of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, that God told them not to eat from. And it was Morgoth who came to men when they awoke in Hildorian and corrupted many of them into wickedness. The downfall of Númenor also bears similarities to the biblical flood, also from Genesis. In Genesis, God, after giving mankind years to repent, casts judgment upon them by bringing a flood that wipes them all out, except for one faithful man named Noah and his family. Noah built an ark, and on that ship he survived the flood and the judgment. I think you can see the parallel with the downfall of Númenor. The Númenorians were evil and wicked, with very few faithful actually left on the island. It was only Elendil and those who followed him, which made up 9 ships. When Eru Ilúvatar sank the island, he sent a gust of wind that sent the faithful far from the island to not be submerged in its sinking. Now I want to dive into the next category, and that is themes. I'm going to try to avoid the most obvious Christian themes, such as the battle between good and evil and man's temptation and fall, as I think those are fairly obvious to the reader. There are various characters throughout The Lord of the Rings, in particular, that relate to a different aspect of Christ: the king, the priest, and the prophet. The king is obviously Aragorn. He is a wise man and the destined ruler whose lineage traces back all the way to the Elder Days. He is the rightful king of Gondor. Similarly, we Christians call Jesus our King and Lord over all the earth. And in the books of Matthew and Luke, we get his genealogy, which traces back not only to King David of Israel, but even before that to Abraham and to Noah and to Adam. The priest is symbolized by Frodo, who took the ring on the quest to Mount Doom and bore the sacrifice that saving the world would bring. This is again a parallel to Christ, who knew no sin and yet paid for our sin by sacrificing himself on the cross. The prophet symbolizes a messenger from God, of whom Christ is the ultimate messenger. And in Middle-earth, Gandalf is sent by the Valar to the free peoples to aid them against Sauron. And of course, the most obvious parallel between Gandalf and Jesus is sacrificing yourself and later rising from the dead and returning more glorious than ever. There is another important aspect of Christ that a character in The Lord of the Rings represents, and that is Sam as the servant. Sam was a loyal and devoted servant to Frodo, whom he would do anything for. And Jesus taught in Matthew that the greatest among you would be your servant, and that even he, the Son of Man, came to serve, not to be served. The last thing I want to talk about in this video are the dates the Fellowship begins their quest and the date that the quest is fulfilled. The Fellowship left Rivendell on December 25th, and the ring was destroyed on March 25th. I'm sure most of you know the importance of December 25th in Christianity, as it is celebrated as the day Christ took on flesh and entered this world. What you may not know is that March 25th is the date believed to be when Christ was crucified, which means December 25th is when the work to bring about salvation for man began, and March 25th is when the work was completed. And in Middle-earth, the quest to destroy the ring began on December 25th, and the ring was destroyed on March 25th. Those are just some of the ways Tolkien's faith influenced Middle-earth. Now, there are more than just these examples, but these are the ones that immediately jump to mind for me when thinking about the Christian influence over The Lord of the Rings and Middle-earth at large. Thank you all for watching. I hope you all enjoyed this different type of video. As always, feel free to like and subscribe for more content, and please let me know how I can better improve these videos. Thanks, and as the elves say, Namaste.